This video is for the RPG Hall of Fame, which I inadvertently sparked by inspiring the amazing Noel Inquisitor to create a playlist for our stories about characters that have appeared in our games. Not our characters, but characters by other players that have inspired or impressed us in some way. This particular story is drawn from my days running Werewolf the Apocalypse. In fact, the first, pretty much, campaign that I ran for Werewolf the Apocalypse was folded into the world I had created for my very long-running Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle. And the player of this character was one of my oldest and still living friends. We went, to junior high and high school together, and have stayed in touch, and we are still gaming together as best we can through email to this very day. He's one of the unfortunate souls who are getting ready to face the unknown in my play-by-email Cthulhu Tech campaign. So I wanted to tell you about a character he created partly against his will long, long ago when Werewolf First Edition was very, very new. He was joining a group of people that I was getting to know through some wargaming, through BattleTech, and through my, omnipresence at the local game store. And he hadn't really gotten to know them yet. So he joined my fledgling werewolf campaign. Because it was a very large group, one of the things that we decided to do is to make sure we had each auspice represented. And I was a little concerned about this at the time, as I recall, because I wasn't sure that, there would be someone in that group, even though it was so large, with an interest in, representing each auspice. My fears were unfounded. But my dear friend was kind of torn what to play. And he liked the idea of the Ahroun, of course, and he liked the idea of the Theurge. Well, we already had a couple of Ahrouns and a couple of Galliards. We had a Ragabash, we had a Philodox. What we didn't have was a Theurge. So I think he felt some social pressure to take that role on, but he wanted some assurances that the character would still be able to fight. So after some discussions and whatnot, he didn't want to be forced into the middle of the party to be protected like some kind of wizard character from our D&D days, or be forced into a role having to be the spiritual advisor for a bunch of players he didn't know, let alone characters and other things like that. But as we started talking about the game, I could see the fires of creation light in his eyes, and he has always been able to come up with incredible characters, sometimes at a moment's notice, and the longer he has to think about them, the deeper and more interesting they become. And this particular character, who went by the name in the tribe of Nightsky Whispers, I feel is the perfect demonstration of this. So perhaps drawing on his own feelings of being a newcomer to the group, the character was a newcomer to the cairn, answering a call, a need for a young Theurge to learn from the older Theurge already represented there, who was reaching the end of his days. And with a kind of a wanderer archetype, a kind of lost pup archetype, but this kind of core of steel. When he knew something was right, he would dig his heels in, and that was that. So this was a really good match to the existing character types that were starting to come out. And this was a great group filled with great characters, but this character stands out partly because of the willingness of the player to engage in character growth. he was as open to being affected by the environment we played through as in affecting the environment with his decisions. He was not the only one. And I get the feeling now as I tell this story, I'll be talking about another character in a follow-up video. But Nightsky Whispers was the youngest, he was the smallest, and he had perhaps the heaviest social burden, other than the Philodox, to carry, as this young pack of werewolves bucked against the leadership of their cairn, got bent out of shape by all the things going around them in the mortal community, and the suspicions they were building as they became more and more in touch with the other supernatural communities, the small pockets that they stumbled across. And as part of a two-man team to keep them safe, Nightsky Whispers had to grow a lot. Now, one of the very cool things that the character had come up with was when he found out about fetishes, was, would it be possible to have this motorcycle that he could take with him into the Umbra? And while I wrestled with it a bit, finally I just decided, let's have fun. Let's go with it. Let's figure out a way that he might have made this happen. Piece by piece, part by part, concept by concept. And so the very first time this motorcycle was introduced to the game, it caused a stir, because I ended up describing the motorcycle once it was translated into the spirit realm as resembling the motorcycle from the Bat Out of Hell album by Meatloaf. Dramatic bat wings and kind of a demonic visage. And that led to, I feel, the character taking on almost a dual nature. There was the Nightsky Whispers that you saw, the contemplative, the quiet, studious martial artist, shaman type, open to the world around him. And then there was the killing machine. And balancing those two urges became the task of the player. No easy task when you have some real powerhouse runes, you have some very, very feisty Galliards, you have a war-minded Philodox, and you have a very, very you have a Ragabash who's very, very intrigued by lighting fires and poking people that shouldn't be poked. The voice of the peacemaker could easily be drowned out. Ultimately, that is what happened. In several pivotal situations in the life of the pack, Nightsky found himself at odds with them. And rather than just go along with it or whatever, the player would state his case and back up his argument. And then when the team got in trouble, he would support them wholeheartedly. He didn't sulk off, slink away, that sort of thing. As a result of his struggles, Nightsky Whispers ended up becoming of extreme importance to some of the local spirits that were struggling against local pollution and local business destroying the environment, as you would expect in a werewolf game. And he inspired the group to devote most of their energy into freeing up riverbeds, working with water supplies and this sort of thing. And as they began to witness the spiritual fabric of their world taking on more life, having a dramatic effect on their physical environment, but also their spiritual environment, the pack began to respond to some of these things that Nightsky wanted. And the balance of power shifted from being all action all the time to being one of, let's figure out what's going on. Let's find the linchpin and let's attack there. Important effect to have, especially in a game that can get so over the top and so exciting as Werewolf. As a result of all these efforts, Nightsky was renamed and became Nightsky Whispers from the Rock. And one of the things I loved most about how this new title was portrayed was that the character hated it. He didn't want to be some kind of massively named character of great import whose renown was going up and whose responsibilities would grow. Um, I'm just Nightsky. I'm just Nightsky. But no, Nightsky Whispers from the Rock. His legend began to spread. Ultimately, the pack fell in battle against a very tough enemy, and there were not many survivors. Nightsky and the other character, Bloodflight, I will talk about later in another clip, were among those who escaped. Nightsky escaping physically unharmed, but mentally and emotionally scarred, and Bloodflight, both of those. And as befit the way he entered the Chronicle, Nightsky Whispers from the Rock rode off into the sunset, never to be seen again. The way the character was handled from start to finish by my dear friend is classic. The character was as much a sum of its inspirations as it was a sum of its players' outlook and views that he wanted to explore in this campaign called The Lie in Belief. And he took that title and he took that theme in his teeth and he shook it for all it's worth. And it's behavior like that among your playgroup that makes games awesome. Very little of it has to do with the guy behind the screen.